All right, so name's Alex Carver, VMware Solutions Architect at Pure Storage. Guess there it is. What we wanted to go ahead and do today is kind of talk about migrating from RDMs to VVols, and even for those Windows Failover Clusters, because that's prior to ESXi 6.7 update 2, or update 1 technically, there wasn't any support for it. So a lot of the reasons customers had not to move off of RDMs to VVols was because of, well, I have a Windows Failover Cluster, I can't move up there. And so I wanted to kind of go through that, yes, it is supported, and yes, you can do it. Just wanted to make sure that that information starts getting out there. Now, while I try to be pretty vendor agnostic, some of the workflows you do have to be on a flash, like you need to go into your storage array to do with VVols or script it out. So there will be some screenshots and video parts with a storage flash array, but always consult with your vendor on the specific workflows for them if you don't have that pure storage. All right, so why convert to RDMs? The big thing here is there's a lot of different features within VVols that you'll be able to utilize moving there. One has been storage policy-based management, being able to apply a storage policy with the specific settings and features there. Insight from vSphere directly to storage, like you have an idea of what volumes are on the array, you can actually see the performance per volume for them, no longer trying to identify which VMs causing the different workloads or which SQL servers, hammering the array. You can actually utilize some managed snapshots and array-based snapshots. The exception is, well, with Windows Failover Clusters, because of those shared scuzzy controllers, or scuzzy controllers in shared mode, you won't be able to take those managed snapshots, but you can still leverage array-based snapshots from the storage policies and have different integrations within, so, such as importing a data VVol to another VM, so kind of doing a database refresh to your dev or staging environment. And then ability to use Power CLI or VRO to actually do a test failovers, those sort of kind of workflows. So some of those integrations, kind of within our plugin, you have the ability to actually do the import, create snapshots, overwrite, restore, those kind of things. It's built directly within our plugin. We'll have some additional features as well, and other vendors, have different features within their own kind of vCenter management plugins too. All right, so what are your options? How do I get there? Now, unfortunately, with migrating from RDMs to VVols, especially with those Windows Failover Clusters, there's going to be a little bit of downtime. Now, part of that happens to be what method you kind of use, and if your SCSI controllers are shared or not shared. If they're not shared, you can just convert from PRDM to VRDM, and then storage vMotion. And that's it. So it's just the amount of time it takes for you to convert the PRDMs to VRDMs, so physical RDMs, virtual RDMs, and you can be able to do that. The other part is if you don't really need the boot volumes, just copy out the RDMs and overwrite a VVol VMs things. Now, with SCSI controllers being shared, like if you don't need the OS boot volume, you can go ahead and just copy those out. If you actually need the boot volumes, there's some different processes. So I actually have a demo that goes through these different processes or kind of workflows. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to be creating placeholder VVol VMs and kind of moving everything over there and just pausing it one node at a time. And this will minimize the amount of downtime you have. So yeah, let's just actually just get to the video because I can talk about all that stuff that I just went through. So initially what I have is a Windows Failover Cluster that has a file service on it. So there's a file server role. It's just a 2-node cluster using RDMs. Conveniently named RDM WSFC VM01. So what I'm doing right now is I'm creating placeholder VMs, and that's actually going pretty fast. So what I want to do is I want to make a VVol VM that has the same kind of CPU, memory, those sort of things as my initial RDM VMs or the SQL. And so I'm going through there, making sure same network, everything kind of matches. Fun thing with this, you can actually utilize Power CLI to pull that information and just orchestrate it that way, which I have done. And now once that's created, well, I already have all the settings. Let me just go clone it and give it a different name. Because there's no virtual disk with these. There's no VMDKs because I'm going to be importing them from the other one, from the existing RDM VMs. And so pretty easy on that part. Now what I want to do now is I want to actually access the VM, and I want to go ahead and pause one of the nodes, ideally whichever one doesn't have the role on it already, so you don't have any necessary failovers there. And so I'm just logging in here. You can also use PowerShell and remote PowerShell to actually do all this stuff too, but for demo's sake, it's there. So I already have one paused, so I go ahead and access this. I shut it down. Now the reason I want to do this is because I'm actually just going to copy the boot VMDK just within the UI itself. I'm just copying it over and basically importing it to the VVol VM itself. And so now that it's down, I check it. Hey, the role's still up, no downtime, no outage, no one's yelling at me or sending angry emails. Now I go ahead and navigate to the vmfs data store that VM's on. Well, there it is. And then I find the boot volume. Oh, there it is right there. And I just copy it. And so now I go find where the VVol data store storage container is that VM that I created is on, find it, and then go ahead and import it. And so while that's kind of going through, do I actually? Yeah, I think I go ahead and create the different placeholder VMs. No, I wait for it to finish. So after the import's done, I power back on the other VM. I can unpause it, make sure everything's good and healthy, and I'm good to go. But now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually import it so the boot volume's there. And then what I'm going to also do is create the placeholder like data VVols essentially for the quorum witness and the whatever data VVol, in my case file server, CSV, whatever. And you want to make sure that they match the right size, because I'm going to overwrite those ones eventually on the flash array from the existing RDMs and overwrite them. So they need to match the size. And so I'm going to, yeah, I should have done that part of it. Or did I only import it there? Any case, now I'm pausing the other one, kind of going through the same process. And then that one's being kind of finicky, so I had to refresh a bunch to show that it was running. Anyways, I made sure that the role was still up there, then went ahead and shut down the VM itself. And then once the VM is shut down, I can do that same VMDK copy that I did with the first VM. Same kind of workflow, you know, and that part of it. So find it, copy it over. And actually when this one is copying, that's when I pop into the other VM and create the placeholder VVols for the Windows Failover Cluster. So here we go. I select the VVol container that I want to copy it to, and it copies out. All right, now I go back to that original one. Now I'm going to go ahead and create the 1 gig quorum witness, and then I'm going to create, I think it's a 250 gig data VVol that I have for the file server. And I'm going to actually set the scuzzy controllers the way it's supposed to be. So now what this does with VVols, because this VM's using VVols, this will actually create the corresponding data VVol on the flash array for this given VM, having me the ability to leverage array-based copy out operations to overwrite or kind of import those volumes. All right, so now that's done. And so now when I get to this VM, I can go ahead and edit it. I'm going to add the existing disk for its boot volume, but now I can go ahead and then share those volumes like you would for any Windows Failover Cluster with RDMs. So you're going to be working the same exact workflow, finding the VM, and that sort. So now that's the boot volume. Now I go and add an existing volume, and I start sharing those placeholder VM or data VVols that'll eventually be overwritten. So our quorum witness and our data. So here we go. Same process. Just make sure you select the right one and find it, but I get it right there, get it there, and we're good to go. Now I want to make sure the scuzzy controllers match and everything there. Now the nice thing with all these different processes, you can orchestrate it. You can do this actually through Power CLI with all these different operations that you're running through. And so if you had a different workflow where you don't want to just click a bunch of buttons, or you're going to be working through a lot of these ones, it is something that you can kind of do that way too. And so now I'm just actually going to offline the disks or stop the roll, offline the disks, get everything into a consistent state, and then shut down the VM. That way Windows isn't mad about me or saying that metadata is inconsistent or whatever nonsense that the different file systems will have, but this way I know that everything is fine. Now conversely, once I stop those rolls and offline the disks, I technically don't even need to shut down the VM, but because I was confident in my ability to do it, I went ahead and went that far. But if you still wanted to make sure that if you needed to roll back to it or online this one really quickly to minimize your downtime, you could. Now once that VM is off, I'm actually going to go to the flash array now. So I'm going to locate my RDMs first, and once my RDMs are found, I'll go ahead and then grab the vgroup VMs too, or find the vgroup or volume group that associates with the VM, and copy down the data volume name and so forth. And then I'll just do the overwrite operation itself. Let's see. Yeah, so now I'm going to get the volume group, and so there's the data volumes. Notice it's still 1 gig and 250 gig, and so now those other tabs that I opened up for the RDMs, I can just go ahead and copy and overwrite them. And so you see here, I do a copy, and I select that volume group for that VM, and then I'm able to then go ahead and enter this, and I overwrite it, because I want to, this is my new data that I'm moving over there. And so I'll do that same thing for the other one. And then what I'll do is I'll come over here, and I'm going to power them on. They powered on successfully. That's good news. That means the boot volume's actually copied over. And then once inside there, oh, I actually did this in reverse order. You should make your anti-affinity rule before powering them on. I got lucky, and they powered on the right hosts. But yeah, make sure your anti-affinity rules are set. But now I get in here, I open up the Windows administration tool for Failover Cluster Manager, and I just go ahead and online everything. And just pop over, yeah, well, there we go. And sure enough, everything's okay and everything's healthy. One thing is that because the IDs themselves did actually change, you're going to get a warning saying, hey, UUID is different, you know, something happened. Well, yeah, of course that happened. I imported it to a different storage device itself. So that's why you get that warning. So really, the process itself can be orchestrated pretty well with Power CLI and so forth, or with Python or whatever your orchestration one goes through, or you can do it manually like that if you want to make sure nothing bad happens. But I mean, the downtime really is however long it takes you to copy out those volumes on the flash array itself. So you can minimize your downtime quite a bit versus doing those storage vMotions and stuff like that, if it's shared ones and that. But more information for this is here, and I also have a blog that some of this information will be popping onto as well. And so hoping to get a lot more information about Windows Failover Clusters on VVols pushed into our KBs. Nothing right now, but a couple drafts for that. But if you have any questions, you can grab me on the side. I'll be here for 20 minutes or so before I have to run off to another one. So thank you.